and we're here just to take questions from you, and we'll just share the microphone. And we're looking forward to having a good legislative session coming up in January. With that, I'll just open it up to any questions.
Do you have priorities?
We do. You know, as the General Assembly, we always take quite seriously the balancing of the budget and passing a budget in a timely fashion, and that will be priority number one. We have a wonderful Republican governor, and I'm sure he will have some initiatives that we will put a priority on as well.
Do you think statewide expansion of pre-K should be a priority?
I don't believe that that will be a priority here. I know that Metro Nashville is talking about it, but when I talked to Dr. Register, he had planned on that being locally financed, not increasing that from the state. So I don't see movement there. I think we'll continue to fund the pre-K that we already have in place, but no additional expansion.
What do you see happening on wine and grocery stores?
It is my preference that we reach a compromise on that. I believe that there is support from the general public for wine in the grocery stores, and so I see movement, and I think that all parties involved have been sitting down and talking with one another during the recess to, I believe, put in place something that we can all get behind.
Are we looking at new legislation, do you think, there?
I think we will still have the bill that will be a resolution allowing the people to vote on it, but I think we'll have, in addition to that, a piece of legislation that will lay down which regulations will be lifted from the liquor industry and some other things that need to be put in place so people know exactly what they're voting on.
What kind of limitations do you envision perhaps being lifted from the liquor industry?
You know that, again, this is all still, they are still meeting. They met this week, and I've been a part of a few of those meetings. But there's a lot for them to discuss. Hours of operation, what exactly they will be allowed to sell. If we allow food sellers to sell wine, then are we going to allow the liquor industry to sell perhaps cigarettes, food items, etc.? And all that is still being discussed, but I predict that we will see movement this year.
Could it be open on Sundays even? Is that a possibility?
That has been under discussion. That would not be something I would push for.
But if wine were sold in grocery stores, could wine be sold on Sundays?
Well, that's what they're discussing now. I believe that beer is sold on Sundays after 10 o'clock. And so I think we are looking at that. I can't predict what the General Assembly will do.
What about Matthew Hill, who was on that committee where it suddenly didn't get through last year? I mean, has he come around on this, or?
Well, you'll have to talk to Matthew about that.
Alright, how confident are you that you're going to be able to get out of that committee after last year he was the one holdout vote?
I have a certain confidence level. I mean, I never can always predict what the General Assembly will do, but I feel that that people want the right to vote on this issue.
Going back to pre-K for a minute, do you and your caucus just feel that the level that's there in the state is adequate? Do you feel it's not effective enough to look at expanding right now, or is it just not
Well, I think
financially feasible at the moment?
It's always been our priority to provide pre-K for the neediest of children, those that perhaps do not receive in their homes the necessary instruction to be ready to enter school day one and learn. And so we want to go into our lowest performing areas and help those children. That's what we've targeted. I don't see a level of comfort to expand it beyond that.
How are you all going to tell estimated 140 to 180,000 Tennesseans on January 1st when the Medicaid expansion becomes effective that it's not happening for them?
Well, as y'all jump in anytime you want. I mean, the governor has, and I believe I've been a part of some of these discussions. He has weighed this out carefully. He wanted the ability to create a plan that would be unique to Tennessee and meet Tennessee's needs and have a way to save money, and wasn't granted that from the federal government. And so I believe that the governor has made the right right decision for our state.
What do you think, Representative Tempore?
I would add to that it would be an easy decision for us to go ahead with the federal government paying for all of it, and let future legislators and governors worry about paying for it a few years down the road when the bills come in. And they're going to come in, and they're always bigger than the federal government estimates. So it would be an easy short-term political solution, but long-term I don't think it would be good for the state, for future legislators, and for future taxpayers. and we've got too much of that going on in Washington, and people don't want us to do that in Tennessee.
What about the people that aren't covered right now? What do you say to them?
Well,
And as you know, I've written several articles about this. I feel passionate that expanding Medicaid would be an economic mistake. And so granted, Andy's numbers, 180,000, maybe suffer because they don't cover, but in 2 years, we as legislators will have to come back to the state of Tennessee and ask 6.5 million people for more of their money. And so our charge is to do what is best for the most in the state of Tennessee, which makes financial prudent decisions. And that's the course that we will take in the House.
With the bigger picture though, don't you see, I mean, with the hospitals not getting their money like what apparently promised, and our unemployment rate kind of staying where it is right now, the 8 point something, where the national unemployment rate's like 7 point something, do you feel like we're kind of at a standstill here in this state all of a sudden as far as the economy? I mean, do you think that's playing a role in any way?
When you look at Medicaid expansion, the bare bones minimum it will cost the state in about year 3 is $200 million. It's probably closer to $250 million, if not more. That's money we just don't have. And so we're being guardians of the taxpayers' dollars by not committing to something we don't have the money for.
Is there any talk that you all might do anything extra for hospitals, like Vanderbilt, like others that are suffering under this because we aren't taking part in Medicaid expansion?
Well, I think you see here in Nashville, Vanderbilt taking some very difficult steps in reducing its staff. And I know that's difficult for Vanderbilt to do. It's in my district, but it was necessary. And I think all hospitals are going to have to reevaluate their business plans, and they are businesses, and they will have to reevaluate their business plans. It's not to say we're not sympathetic, we are, but I think what you hear clearly from the General Assembly is that there are a lot of good things we would like to do. We'd like to spend more money on education. We'd like to spend more money on environmental issues. But at some point, you have to step back and say, this is all the money we have, and this is how we're going to allocate it, because we are never going to be Washington, D.C. We're just simply not going to spend money we don't have.
Speaking of, you mentioned education, what legislation do you propose on Common Core?
Well, I will not be presenting any as speaker, but I believe that reasonably the General Assembly is of course interested in it because the public is interested in Common Core. I think we'll hold some meetings on it. I think my prediction, and the General, others can jump in, is that we probably will look at data. I think the number one concern from groups that when I hear concerns is what data is being collected and who has access to that data on the children. And so I do believe that that's something for us to look at and make sure that we take some proper precautions for data collection and storage.
And I believe there was also some lawmakers thinking about legislation concerning the textbook commission as well. Any specifics on that?
And that would be a separate issue, and yes, I do think we'll look at who is on our textbook commission, and what training these people receive, and does this belong at the state level, or could this be something the local boards do? So I do think that will be open to discussion.
Section T, hardening of each groups that seem to be putting pressure on, particularly some Republican lawmakers. Do you find that to be the case?
well, that's okay.
I
I think they should have the same rights as anyone else to have their views known, and we need to consider them seriously and take them into consideration. I don't think we're putting any undue pressure on anyone, and we actually agree with most of what they're advocating anyway. I do think the textbook issue has gotten mixed up with the Common Core somewhat, and we need to educate people on that and fix both of them if there are problems. But I also think we realize that in order to recruit businesses to the state, we've got to be able to show businesses, especially from out of state and out of the country, that we're competitive, that we're teaching, and they've got to be able to measure it in some way that's the same as the other states.
What do you see happening on school vouchers? Lieutenant Governor Ramsey last week told us that he would like to see something between what the limited program the governor talked about last year and more of a wide open one, something in between. What you're thinking?
That's a possibility. I think last year we wanted to go slow and let some of the reforms that we have initiated take hold, which they did take hold, and we had a lot of successes there. So maybe we'll go a little bit further this year than we planned on last year, but I don't think the governor's decided yet. And I actually talked with him yesterday on the subject, and I think it's under active discussion. We have had a year to let things settle down a little, so I think they'll make a decision on that pretty quick, and I think we'll all get in hopefully have some kind of agreement.
Do you think he plans to have a bill, or will it be,
I don't think he's made a decision yet.
Yeah, I
That's
don't
what
either.
you're
I better be careful not speak for him.
Have you talked to, I know there were two senators in particular that wanted to expand it, and there's some other groups that want to expand it. Have you talked to any of those parties?
I'm not, I've been too busy working in my regular job.
So, vouchers, if the governor doesn't go ahead and propose a plan, is this something that you guys would get behind, whatever the Senate puts out? Because the Senate seems to be more passionate about vouchers than the House does.
No, I would be supportive of what came out of our House Education Committee.
So probably something more limited?
I think the General Assembly believes that the money should follow the children, and that parents, for the most part, want more choice in the education system. But I also think that we're cautious that we would lean more toward a pilot program to see how well it would work, and if we really get the increased student performance that we would expect, as we are expecting now of our public schools.
Also, there are a couple folks with CLAS, the Coalition of Large School Systems, talking about student attrition and kids who are leaving. That test scores should be linked to where kids are going to school the most, as opposed to where they happen to be going to school at test time. It's kind of a branch out of what they were talking about at Metro with the allegations that charter schools were kicking kids out right before test time. They're going to bring legislation, they're planning to this year. What do you think of that idea, that wherever the kid spends the most time at in the school year is where those test scores are attributed to? For TCAPs.
And I'm familiar with that, and this is what concerns me about the education system today. They're so worried about inertia and bureaucracy and my school and your school. The legislature is concerned about educating Tennessee children. We want them to perform well. If they go 6 months at school A and 4 months at school B, it's irrelevant. What is relevant is that they do well and they perform. They can read and write at their level. And that's what is our concern, is that, not those inner workings.
Well,
What about
but I
the
guess the
teachers?
argument is that some of these charter schools are effectively dumping their bad students on public schools, and they're being held responsible for it.
I think it'll get a fair hearing, to answer your question.
I think it would get a fair hearing, but I think they are being able to say that without anything to back that up. Because that's simply not what I'm finding. The public charter schools that exist in Memphis and in Nashville, they are performing well. They were our top performing schools, middle schools here in Nashville, and everyone knows what's happening in Memphis, how they're turning the school system around. I think what we need to be more concerned with in our public schools in the urban areas, and this tends to be an urban issue, is why are so many children leaving to go to private schools? Because that's where we're really losing money.
Charter authorizer, is that something that's gonna come back, or what's going on with that?
Well, that has passed the House and it's now in the Senate's hands.
Okay.
Well,
Maybe one
Ramsey
more.
says that he thinks that, he realizes that's something you're highly interested in, and it will pass, I think is what he's basically said.
Well, he's the lieutenant governor.
Is there any expectation of return to guns and lots legislation to clarify the disagreements that have come up around that?
I believe there is some movement on some individual legislators to look at, can we make some changes to what we passed last year. We want to be supportive of Tennesseans' right to own and bear arms. We also want to be very sensitive to the business being very concerned with the right to fire and hire in the state at will. So we'll try to balance that, as we always try to do.
All right. One more. Anybody?
well, I don't, it may have come up before I came in, but the urban school systems were asking for the continuation of funding for DEP 2.0. As you recall, it was funded halfway under Bredesen. Do you see any possibility for that happening?
It's going to be a tight fiscal year. Keep in mind, we do fully fund BEP. Governor Bredesen put in BEP 2.0 with the understanding that it would be phased in as money was available. And we did add some additional money in. I think the governor has prioritized once again putting money into education. How much we can this year, I don't know. As you all know, it's going to be a tight fiscal year.
And I think it costs about $250 million was my understanding.
And
I don't think we have it.
And are you hearing anything from Memphis legislators about the need for a fourth year of municipal school legislation in Shelby County? Yeah.
Not much. I think Germantown had an issue with some school buildings, but I don't think there's gonna be legislation in that regard, and I think they've almost got it settled out, we certainly hope so.
Thank you.
How difficult is it gonna be to, I mean, it looks like you're gonna have to cut $128 million out of this year's budget, which has an impact on next year, but what do you all see, how difficult is that gonna be?
Well, it's never pleasant, to cut a budget, but will we do it? Yes, because we always, as history has held true, we have been fiscally responsible in this state, and I think we will do that again this year. And we're here to make some difficult decisions from time to time.
Any regrets on, some of these tax cuts, the $160 million worth of tax cuts over the past several years?
I have absolutely no regrets at all. I do believe in the long term, we will see that be beneficial to our state economically. People will stay here in retirement, and that's what we want.
All right.
Requiring a prescription for pseudoephedrine, do y'all hear much appetite for that, and is realistic?
Well, a recent Vanderbilt survey said that the published attitude toward that certainly has changed. We do know that we have a problem with meth in this state. It's a very serious one. Many of our localities have gone ahead and passed that at the local level, and of course the Attorney General has ruled that that is not constitutional. And so I believe we will look at it this year. What passes the General Assembly, I'm not sure, but I do believe a bill will be passed.
I think Kara wants us to quit before Woods gets here.
Thank you all.